Welcome back to Aliens and Angels podcast. Today I'm pleased to bring you two very special guests, Philip and Ronald Kinsella. Philip Kinsella is the author of numerous books and articles on UFOs and consciousness. Since Philip's own alien abduction back in the winter of 1989, along with the appearance of UFOs at close range, he has been driven to find the truth of what may be behind these alien intrusions, and has highlighted several theories surrounding the big question of the Greys themselves. His speculation emphasizes a better understanding of multidimensional levels of consciousness and our need to look outside of the box, rational thinking, which science continually denies within the advent of such strange singularities. Ronald Kinsella is an author and artist. He is currently working on a science fiction novella aimed at adults and is based on an ugly future. He also plans to rekindle his passion for building his own models using the very latest resin technology, along with sculpting software. He aims to create large representations of his imagination late 2024, highlighting monsters, robots, and spaceships. All of the links are featured below in the description. Please do check me out, subscribe to my channels, leave me a comment, like my videos, and share my content with your friends. So without further ado, I introduce you to Philip and Ronald Kinsella. Welcome to the Aliens and Angels show. So good to have you here.
Thank you very much, Karen.
And thank you, Karen. Yes, it's a pleasure to be on here.
And I'm glad to be on again because I've been on several times and it's been amazing.
Yes. Yes, and I'll have a link to the last show we did together down in the description for those who want to catch up. So I guess a good place for us to start today is with your ET experiences. And I wondered if, Philip, if you want to start us off and tell us just as much as you're comfortable sharing about your contact experience.
Yes, I mean, well, it all started back in our childhood, to be honest with you. And the only real major abduction that I recalled was in the winter of 1989, and that was in the village of Marston Mortain, and that had been raw within its symmetry. That is to say that the onslaught of the abduction really woke me up and gave rise to new speculation about whether or not we're dealing with some kind of entity from another planet or indeed another dimension. And you'll find that when you are touched by this singularity, that this changes you. You go through a process of transmutation. And this then led into the area of the psychic component, interdimensional levels of contact, which was proven much later within my years. But the abduction itself is very long-winded. I have gone over it before. But interestingly enough, within that abduction, there were 3 reptilians and several greys, one of which at the end of the experience I came to become familiar with in a very strange way. And another researcher had made some interesting parallels between that. But during that time, and when I was coming forward with this, not in any way to promote myself, but wanting to find a deeper question of what contact meant and why this happened, most people within the UFO fraternity at that point in that time had made no correlation between reptilians or grey aliens. And even going forward into a book that I had published via a publisher long before Amazon, called Believe, Bridging the Gap Between the Psychic and UFO Phenomena, I had to retract that part with regards to the intrusive investigation by these said aliens, because no connections could be made between the reptilians and the greys. But thankfully, I had it replicated in a magazine long before the book appeared. So we can see that the attitudes within ufology have changed somewhat now. We all go through that morphology, as they call it. But yes, the experience was very traumatic, but I think had opened a lot within my psyche with regards to consciousness and other bigger questions. So it's not just about being interested in UFOs. This opens up other areas of the psyche, life after death, and the beyond, and many other subjects. Ronald's was different.
Mine was quite different. My encounter happened in 1982, and I was very heavily into science fiction. Most kids were, Doctor Who and all that. We loved all that.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes against you, But it was 1982. Basically, in a nutshell, I was snatched from my room. Now, we lived in Luton, a Victorian house, so quite large. I didn't mean to say you're rich or anything like that, but they were quite lovely, spacious rooms. The Victorians knew how to build. I tell you, they were really marvellous builders. Good, solid foundations. I was taken up through the roof to this thing hanging overhead. I couldn't discern what it was. It was dark. It was outside. I was ejected up into it, and I found myself in this room, a medical environment, kind of medical. And there were these doctors ahead of me. The doctors were very peculiar because they were armored from head to toe. I couldn't see what was behind all that. I would gather it was more or less like a nuclear reactor gizmo thing they were wearing, but they were very ultra modern, ultra modern. And there was one behind me. I couldn't see him. I knew instinctively there was one behind me because I tried to turn to look, but I couldn't see it. They say you have paralysis. I agree to a degree, absolutely. But it wasn't as if I was completely glued to my seat. I could move, but I had no compulsion to turn to view what was behind me. And they spoke in plain English, very British, authoritative of doctors. That's important. And the first thing he said, I'll never forget it, was he said, "We are going to perform an operation on you, Ronald." That's exactly what he said. Thereafter, I couldn't discern exactly how the dialogue took shape, but it was basically me begging him not to go through with this operation. I thought it was to do with the brain, a neurological procedure. I was physically fit. There's nothing wrong with me back then. But he was insistent. I knew that, like a fly trapped in a spider's web, I was licked, done for. There's nothing I could do. They were going to do what they were going to do. And he proceeded to show me this device they were going to use to knock me out. And it was shaped like a pen with a nodule on the end. And he took my left hand and he pressed the tip of this nodule on the top of it, and bang out, I went out like a light. And the next thing, I was ejected from this spaceship or whatever it was in the sky. I was ejected and sent safely back down. I mean, I was treated very well. I mean, apart from being taken against your will, they didn't harm me as far as I knew. And they did something, I don't know what they proceeded to do, but I was dropped down onto the bed in my bedroom, and it went all quiet. But then there was this mirage that appeared on the ceiling. And now you could forgive me for actually believing there were two separate instances, but they weren't. It was connected. And this was a mirage, the horrifying hologram it looked like. It was all electric blue wavering, the head of a Cheshire cat. Now he just peered down at me. It was horrifying. All his teeth showing, it's a goodbye present, I think, from them. And he just stared at me, and I was horrified by him. And that was when it ended. Now, what's interesting about that, and I never saw them again, the doctors, I refer to them. What's interesting about that case is that I had a fear of doctors and policemen, and also the fact that the Cheshire cat, I surmised many, many years later, whether it was an insurance policy on their part, so that if I should go and see a psychologist or someone and tell them about the Cheshire cat, they'll say, "Well, hang on a minute, you're just getting confused. This is Alice in Wonderland. You've been down the rabbit hole. Well, I certainly have been, haven't I? But it's interesting. But they were real. They were there. They weren't nasty. He spoke authoritative, the Queen's English, and they had proceeded with this apparent alleged operation. Now, afterwards, there were no marks on me. I couldn't find any discernible marks on me at all. What they'd done to me, I have no idea. And it is so bizarre in 1982 for this to happen because you didn't speak about it. Of course, there was no internet. There was very few books on the subject, and I didn't know much about it. But I guess I just pushed it to the back of the recesses of my mind until later on.
But that was the same year, earlier that year in 1982, when we had observed the silver orb, the Foo Fighter that was shaped the size of a football,
Yes.
with our grandparents in their property in Middlesex.
Yes.
So we don't know whether or not that was related to Ronald's later experience, because on board that craft or whatever it was where he was, there were three of them, weren't there?
There were three ahead of me. They didn't speak. The one
Stood
behind
there.
me was in charge. He was the one who did the talking, but I couldn't see him.
And he knew your name.
Oh, yes, he knew me. It's as if he knew me very well, but I didn't know who he was.
And I remembered Ronnie telling me about this, and I remembered him also explaining to me a little bit later about seeing this at night, although it may not be related, this awful, evil-looking dog just sitting there in the corner of the room, smiling at him, grinning at him. Now, he used to put books at the back of his, at his back at bed, and he used to put an old guitar by the door to try and protect himself. But of course, as a kid, 13 at the time, it was the only way that he thought that he knew to evade whatever had happened to him. So it had some kind of effect on him for some time. And then you had the attack, the neurological attack. You collapsed in the classroom soon afterwards because of your head.
Yeah, it's the scarring of this. I mean, although they were pleasant and forceful, it was horrifying. I mean, they were terrifying to me. And the guitar against the door is to alert me if anyone comes in. But ironically, they took me through the ceiling. And the books, I don't know what that was about. Stuffed books, hardback books up my back. I don't know. I don't think I was going to be stabbed. Perhaps I thought they could weigh me down from being taken up.
That's right. Yeah.
But the dog, I don't know what he was. I mean, it was sometime afterwards. Whether it was residue, I don't know. It's akin to the Cheshire Cat, really. But I saw him for a while. It was very bizarre. Completely screwed me up. That did. But they were very very authoritative. Again, I use that word. Frightened of doctors, police, and they're speaking the Queen's English. He knew my name. This is amazing. I couldn't believe. He was amazing. I did know in their presence that I wouldn't be injured by them. They weren't going to turn nasty because they had that kind of authority that depicted intelligence, but at the same token, I was terrified about what they were going to do, hence the brain.
Yeah.
But strangely, what happened after that, I can't remember or recall how long ago it was after that, but it wasn't long. I had a massive fit at school with pains in the back of my head. 3 of them, bang, 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 and I collapsed. I actually collapsed in class, rolled over, and they opened up the windows and they said, "Did I want to go and see a doctor?" I said, "No, I didn't. I don't want to see a doctor. I'm terrified of them." But they were very good. They sent me home. I was off for a week. I had a banging headache, but it never reoccurred. It's very weird, very strange.
And my experience as well in 1989, when I was 20, heralded the appearance of these other beings are very different from Ronnie's, and I did have physical marks on me, constant nosebleeds to the right nostril, 3 triangular marks to the right ear that we tried to take pictures of with this self-developing Kodak Polaroid camera, but it never came out. And of course, the suspicion years later from the doctors of a possible implant in the right ear, that has gone since I had certain jabs and have no more. So that's highlighted in terrestrial trespassers, whether or not the jabs themselves did something, or because there was another account soon after we had the jabs of a UFO and the sounding of one going in the early hours of the morning, and then finding rings around both of our necks, but no memory other than that. So it's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when I was in their grip, these doctors, I call them the doctors, There was an urgency. He did reiterate, recalling it, that it had to be done. He said it was important. It must be done. It's for your own good. He stated it is for your own good. It's got to be done. But what on earth they did, I have no idea.
No.
And someone asked me, did I count his fingers when he held that device? Well, no. No. I didn't count his fingers. I wasn't looking at them. I was looking at what he was holding, to press against my hand. They were efficient, calculated, and extremely very, very methodical. I mean, I even felt myself being ejected from this thing, and I was falling. There's another interesting point I'll make. As I dropped, not necessarily when I went up, I can't remember that really, how I felt, other than being zipped up into it. But when I was dropped, controlled and carefully dropped, they took care of me to drop me back down. There was this kind of electrical discharge. It's as if every hair on my body was standing on end, and I did feel the bump of the mattress when I landed on it. They placed me safely back down. So it's very fascinating when you recall this. I have not seen them again. These doctors, but I wonder. Actually, I don't think they really were. I think the armor, yes, the armor. They were three ahead of me who just stood there watching me. I couldn't get anything from them. They didn't even speak. Only him behind me spoke to their leader. But very interesting, isn't it? How they wore this get-up. It could be that they didn't want to frighten me. It's possible that something perhaps did need to be done. I mean, who knows? People say they're physically fit. Perhaps there was something. Perhaps the fit I had, I did consider this on the good side of it. Perhaps the fit I had is something that was going to happen, and they prevented death. Like an earthquake, you have the tremors afterwards. Perhaps they did something to prevent me from keeling over and dying in that moment. Who knows? They didn't harm me by any means. No.
It sounds to me like when these experiences were happening, they were very frightening and foreign and bizarre. And it sounds to me like you were in a bit of a state of shock. Now, what I'm wondering is, and I'm assuming by what you've said so far that there's the possibility that over time you were both able to make a little bit of sense of it and put it in a category in your mind where it wasn't so frightening. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think with the onslaught of what I went through, that was typical of what they would call an abduction. I know that you have contactees, totally respected, and of course, they have different experiences. It depends upon the evolution of the soul or the spirit, I guess. But what did happen was that years later, my mind, I'm like a dog with a bone. On a theoretical level, I've got to try and find out how things work and why they happen. This did open up a psychic faculty. And I thought about it long and hard, that a lot of people on our earth at the moment, God love them, are going through life as one would normally go through life, with centralized, restricted programming. And there are many individuals out there who are elevated to a degree, and that doesn't make us special. It just means there's a process of awakening. So I believe that it took, and it does take a lot to get through to this thick skull of mine, because I am very grounded and very solid within my viewpoints. So I guess that something had to come along that really knocked me for six in order to wake me up to the fact that, there are alternative dimensions of reality. And it was also fascinating because the idea of contact always appealed to me. I always had this dream, and we do dream. Just because you've had an experience doesn't mean to say that you're a blank canvas, that you're not allowed an interest in science fiction or in fiction or in non-fiction. People tend to put you in a box, don't they? Say, oh, you shouldn't be anything but a blank canvas if you see a UFO. What a load of rubbish. But I did have these visions, these dreams of meeting these people, beautiful people coming down in a craft. But unfortunately, the experience I had, maybe fortunately, I think more so now, actually made me realize and opened up the psyche into these other areas of exploitation, certainly concerning consciousness, the afterlife, incarnation, reincarnation, the source of all that is, and it goes on and on. So, if I hadn't had that, if I didn't have that, then I would still be that, prosaic being, that was me before this happened. So I'm kind of very grateful and happy in a way that it occurred. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here right now talking about this.
Well, something interesting about the UFO, what it certainly did do for me was lead me into the spiritual aspect
Both of us.
life. And let me tell you, my goodness, it's been an incredible path. I have not, to my mind, seen myself personally, these greys, but I had a premonition because I saw a medium many years ago, and she said I was psychic. I said, I'm not. I couldn't face the skin of a rice pudding. She said, you are. So later on, I found out that she was quite right. She said, your skills will develop when you're in your 40s. They didn't. They don't have time there. They started when I'm in my 50s, mid-50s now, so they've started. And what's interesting is this subject, it has a way of kicking you in the teeth when you contradict it, because I did exactly that in a way of denouncing time travel. I denounced it. And what happens? I start seeing what happens tomorrow. These are unpredictable. I don't ask for them. It's like, I'll explain how it happens. I was amazed. I didn't ask for it to happen, but it's like seeing a world over your eyes, a scenario. And they showed me one where I was talking to this chap in New York. His name was William, lovely chap, about the UFOs. And I kept seeing, this is when it started, in my early 50s then, all this sand. Now, I nearly passed it up, and I didn't understand it when I said, William, I'm sorry, William, I'm seeing all this sand, miles of sand. Does this have any meaning for you? No, no. Well, the next morning, he sent me a number of emails with photographs, sand everywhere. He'd worked with miles and miles of sand. Now, some would attribute that to being coincidental. It wasn't, certainly wasn't. I thought, my goodness, I've just seen a portion of the future, and there I was denouncing time travel. I had a slap in the face. I had a slap in the face. So, and it happened again and again. And what's interesting is that they showed me Nicola Sturgeon's resignation. She's a political figurehead here. I won't get into the politics. So I have nothing against them at all. You know, people have grievances over them. I don't. I mean, she resigned, and I saw this happening long before she resigned. This was a while ago. I saw her resignation, and it happened. And they showed me another few other things, and then the big one came. Now, I wrote about this. I called it the vision. And what it was happened the same as the sand and the others. This is after seeing these aliens and going down the spiritual path. It's very amazing. They showed me a scene. I was with Philip at work. This was some years ago, wasn't it? And I saw it unfolding, this scene. I thought, oh, here we go again. So we're 72 in this picture. I just knew we're 72. And we're driving along this country road in England, somewhere down this old coppice. There's all woodland everywhere. And it's grey. It's all grey. The day is very grey. And there's an artificial mist being conjured within this group of trees. It's being simulated, or something is creating it. And I know something's in there. We need to go and see it. Hence, it's camouflaged. So we stop the car and we go in. There's all fog everywhere, all grey. And we get to the centre of it, like the eye of a hurricane. It's clear. And I see a triangular ship hanging in the air above. You can see it through the fog beyond it. And there's these two greys dropping from it. They're floating down. And fortunately, what's very interesting about this vision is the parallels of sensibility. They're dropping at a distance. Of course, we would be very shocked to see them. No disrespect to them. I would be. Anyone would. You know, the first meeting of them, you'd be absolutely petrified.
Yeah.
Philip and I are standing at a close distance as they drop, and they land some way off in the coppice, but they're looking at us. They're there. And that's where it ends. So I wonder if that's something they wish to tell us. And the interesting thing I made about that vision, and it ended there. So if we reach 72, if it does happen, but the others have happened. So I'm wondering if something was gearing us up to then show me this, a revelation of something. Evidently, they want to tell us something. They want to inform us of something. And I'll say this respectfully. They won't be appearing at our beds at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, half naked and unattended. They're not going to shock us in that way this time. They're going to, what happens to people, they're going to They want us fully conscious to see them. Evidently, it's important.
Well, we have to wait for that.
We have to wait and see. I don't think it's shattering, but evidently they wish to tell us something. This will be very interesting.
Yeah, I think you're also the last major experience, the incredible encounter, and has been documented, with 3 massive, huge UFOs that came over us and descended, was on the 9th of April 2016 at precisely 11:15 p.m. at night. That's a long story, but there were other people in our family involved with that. My niece filmed the UFOs while they're on their way before they had reached us.
90 feet up, weren't they?
Yes, and I think now we haven't had any other UFO experiences by that time, so I don't know, but it was quite spectacular. Yeah,
that incident was amazing,
yeah,
Karen, because what they'd done, and Philip gets very excited. I'm much calmer. I'm always been calmer. I don't know how or why, but I've always been calmer, and I got a good look at these babies. I tell you, there are 3 of them. They're independent. They were huge. Were they white?
They're white.
White balls. The size of them, when they were big, I couldn't discern. They were 90 feet up, and there was one moved. That when they had stopped, one moved and backwards and forwards, and they did something else. I got nothing from them. I tried to communicate with them. There was nothing. I got nothing.
There's nothing.
But what they had done is, that was a Saturday night, but we have a pub down the road, and it's Saturday. There was not one soul anywhere. They had shut that street off,
and the sound was gone.
The sound was strange. When we spoke, there's another thing I noticed when these godly things were present. When we spoke, it's as if your voice is muffled. You know, when it snowed heavily, and you shout. That's exactly what it was like.
Yeah.
And then I will never forget the way they moved. I watched them very carefully. They then aligned in a perfect formation.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3,
and they moved. The way they moved,
shut off,
and then
that was it.
They're gone. It's as if they're impervious to any kind of friction. It's the way they moved.
Yeah.
I have never seen anything as smooth. The technology of that is astounding.
Now, they were also clocked by other researchers in other areas of England, and they were travelling from the Isles of Scilly across and following the Michael and St Mary ley line. Now, that's very interesting. So that last major account, and up close and personal is too vague to use. That was really close, but we didn't get anything negative from them at all. It was fascinating.
Well,
I was a little bit spooked because they when you're presented with them, it's kind of like, and my niece was trying to get hold of me on my mobile phone.
I used the word godly.
Yeah.
I used the word godly. I always use that word godly. It was so incredible.
So one wonders whether or not they, it's not just about ufology here. Karen, as well as we all do, that there are other elements, soul elements, perhaps even past life elements, brings into the incarnation process. This opens up just, because everyone puts them in little boxes, all the here and the Sasquatch there and the UFO there, when there are connections to be made with them. So,
it's all part of the same phenomena.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like the Greys. Philip and I are very casual, laid back. I wouldn't care if they told us they were our creators, so it wouldn't bother me. I'd say, okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fair enough. I wouldn't bat an eyelid. So I think because we adopt this kind of mindset, like our grandparents, our grandfather as well, and our mother as well, we'd be blasé. We wouldn't bat an eyelid at anything. Whatever they have to tell us, whatever it is, I wouldn't mind, wouldn't care. If we have this meeting with them, I'm sure it will be, if it happens, I'm looking forward to it actually, to seeing them. It will be very, very terrifying for me on my part. But as I said, they're very clever how they instigated the distance, which is logical. For anything strange, they would know that we would be uncomfortable to a degree, not disrespectful of them, but that's just how it is. We're different, So this is going to be very interesting.
It gives us hope, doesn't it, Karen? It gives us hope. We know that we are more than what we have been told through the centralized programming and conditioning from our system that really shockingly does not in any way, take these subjects seriously. I mean, let's think about this very carefully. The whole of our evolution is all about money, all about for some power, and yet we're not making any progression. But thankfully, a lot of people now are waking up. They're becoming enlightened, and each experience is unique to the individual because they are processing that information on their level of reality, how they view reality. So I think this gives us hope, and I think the old system is beginning to collapse. But I still believe personally that there are darker forces here that's got their grip on the earth plane, and I think with us being uniquely human and going through this process of incarnation, reincarnation, there's a problem somewhere along that line that I've been looking into. Not a problem with the process of incarnation, reincarnation, but certainly to do with these darker forces that seem to have hijacked this world and using their puppets and rewarding them with money and power and titles to entice them into their overall agenda. But we are all magnificent beings of light, and we have the power, the inherent power to become incredible. And just before I finish off here, this goes to show and prove in the past why, and through most levels of religion, there has been a dogmatic process of instilling fear. Don't do this, don't do that, think narrowly, do not use your mind, or bring these other specters in, which those at the top of the symbolic pyramid are doing themselves. So yes, it's a big
It sure is. And what you said is just brilliant. Now, I want to take a very short break, only 2 minutes long, for a promotion. When we come back, can we touch upon the idea of interdimensionality and how your experiences could be described as interdimensional, and then branch off, if we have time, into the spiritual ramifications of this. So hold tight, only be 2 minutes, and then we'll be right back.
Okay, yeah.
Hi guys, break time for a short message. YouTube will not monetize me, so if you enjoy my content and want to support my efforts, help me to cover my expenses by visiting my shop to buy yourself a beautiful orgone generator. Zendome's Orgonite are my unique brand, and they are ethically sourced, handmade, and double charged for maximum effect. They are only available through my website, www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com. Many people are finding comfort with Zendome's orgone generators, commonly called Orgonite. They are a simple compound which balance ambient energy by converting negative energy and EMF into positive healing energy with many easily confirmed health benefits. They are a simple compound with alchemic and energetic properties. These devices function as self-driven, continuously operating, highly efficient, negative to positive energy transmutation factories. They help diminish the harmful effects of electromagnetic frequency radiation by attracting and converting negative energies, retuning them into new and more healthful sound and light wave patterns. And they help to purify the atmosphere and accelerate plant growth. They also help stimulate positive mood and are a natural remedy for poor sleep patterns. When Orgonite is within range of any corded or wireless electronic device, it will efficiently and continuously transform that energy into orgone as it is being transmitted. This essentially creates orgone energy transmitters out of any and all emitters of harmful negative energy. You can use these devices for focusing the mind, healing, meditation, and for spiritual growth. Zendome's Orgonite are my unique brand of orgone generators, and they are only available through my website. Don't be fooled by imitations. Check out my website to see my latest selection at www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com. That's KarenHolton healthcoach.com. Check them out today. Now, let's get back to the show. And we're back. So we're going to continue with our wonderful discussion. I've learned so much today from both of you, and thank you for your honesty. It's not easy to come out and talk about these experiences. They're deeply personal. We expose ourselves to ridicule and, of course, disbelievers. But I think it's important that we come out and we share our experiences. And I'm hoping now we could just sort of branch off a little bit into the interdimensional component. And for example, while both of you were taken, you seem to pass through solid matter.
Yeah.
Then there's the whole ESP thing that seems to happen to us after experiences. And then there's even the ramifications of how this branches over into the spiritual realms. So I'm wondering if either one of you would like to just sort of start us off in that direction.
Yes, of course. I mean, through my abduction back in 1989, there were two components, as I said before. One was physical, one was non-physical. Yet I still had marks after that where I was able to be drawn through solid material, the glass of the house, and even to the point of questioning the grey at the end, how that was possible. And he gave no response back. Now, what's interesting is that this proved to me, theoretically, back in 1996, to a degree, that we are dealing with interdimensional phenomena because, with the greys, they're able to perhaps extract the real part, the real essence of what we are, and draw us into their realm where interaction is then feasible, is possible. The communication was with me quite direct, the same with Ronald, and through a form of mind exchange. And that was rather like talking, but within the mind. So this also opened up other areas of interest to me with regards to the dogman, the Sasquatch, and how these beings are able also to communicate occasionally to their witnesses, or, I won't say victims because most people are scared of them, which is the normal process where these things are involved. But the human seems to be so far removed from all of the other areas of the paranormal, whereas they're able to communicate through the mind, we through vocalization. That does not mean to say that people can't communicate through the mind. There are gifted people who are able to do that, telepathy. These functions have been shut down by the system over millennia, as we know. The spiritual component, that's interesting because with regards to my research with the greys, I wondered why it was that a species that could not reproduce, was perhaps through a process of self-replication, was interested in the act of reproduction and hybridization. And this then, of course, opened up other theories that I had, and which led then into areas of spirit, of consciousness, of the natural process of conception, memories being drawn within the etheric and taken back to the other side. So that it wasn't just about, I've been abducted by aliens and I went through solid objects and they communicated through the mind. The shock of this afterwards made me realize that we're dealing with something that is so far incredible in terms of interdimensional. And very quickly, with the research done into the astral planes or survival of consciousness when we finish our life here, and the etheric part draws into the astral, certainly we find that there are other levels within the astral, within those planes of reality, whether it's lower or higher in terms of their connection. And this is very interesting indeed. So, I always state that, with regards to this phenomena, it's not as clear cut as many people have been led to believe. And finishing off, we all go through a process of transmutation within our thinking. Back in the 80s, we thought we were dealing with spaceships from another planet. Now look where we are now. People are now bringing in new theories, new ideas, new speculations. What's your thoughts, Ronnie?
It is possible that I have thought about it for a long time. The doctors, I've had plenty of time to think about them. 1982, the incident. Whether they chose that guise to be kind, taking on a kind of medical scenario. Although I was frightened of doctors, they had to appear in some form or other. So they conjured themselves as those authority and elders. I mean, certainly he spoke with middle-aged, authoritative voice. So, and did they help me? It's quite possible. I have focused on the negative in some of my books, the negative, but you focus on the negative, and there's also the good, you see. So there is always two sides of a coin. And I have to actually wonder if they did help me in some fashion or other, whether they did save my life. It did cross my mind about that, So it's spiritual, yes. It would seem, wouldn't it, quite plausible that there is a combination of this at work with these things, because when I was in their presence, like the orbs we had seen above us in 2016, they had a kind of godly eminence about them. I'm not saying they were holy, I'm just saying there was some kind of their superior clout certainly was enough to make you completely blinded by their incredible know-how. And they knew exactly what they were doing. They were prepared for it, and I kept arguing and contesting, well, if these aliens knock people out prior to an operation, why is it they just don't knock you out prior to a snatching or being taken?
Mm-hmm.
Might be a
Mm-hmm.
good reason behind that. I mean, there is one rule of thought is they want you to see them. Is this to help you? Because if it was just completely a blank, you wouldn't learn a thing. Is it possible that they were steering us towards a more spiritual aspect? Because that's exactly where we drove to in life. We went down that course, and it opened up many incredible doors. I'm telling you, the spiritual aspect of this was an incredible journey. Certainly from what I have seen and experienced. And I, of all people, was a disbeliever. Even though I had seen them, somehow you push it to the back of your head. You don't want to know, but it's like I would say it's like a bad smell. It will always rise up. What were they? What did they do to you? What do they want? You're going to question it again and again. And it's a healthy thing. I think the one thing about this age now, well, certainly with the internet, it has helped us to branch out with other people of like-minded people. It's wonderful because we can come together to discuss it, to form opinions. We don't know what they want, or certainly what they did to me, but certainly you can draw conclusions, which is wonderful. And it has inspired me as well. With my creativity, it's opened it up enormously. It does. I think it has done more good thinking about that than harm, because I'm still here and I'm even more productive than I ever was before. Certainly
Yeah.
with the creature effects I'm working on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now I'm wondering, I believe, and this is just a theory, a working theory. I actually don't have too many solid beliefs anymore because of everything I've experienced and what I've learned. But I have working theories, and in that way I can add information and change, follow the course as it leads me. But I'm thinking that those of us who have had extraterrestrial contact or interdimensional contact, depending on how you want to look at it, we've had a lot more contact than what we remember. And I also feel that um, we were given some memories and some conscious awareness so that we could go out, do our own analysis as Earth people, and share that with the world. Because another aspect of the spirituality that's going on, I believe, is a bit of a war with humankind right now
Mm.
between the forces of evil and the forces of good. And I'm wondering if you have anything that you would like to add to that conversation.
Yes, most definitely. I mean, I've always called it the silent war. And I think just taking a step back to see what's going on within the political arena, although I don't get involved, I always wondered how things could be so different upon this beautiful planet. Something has gone wrong. Now, if we go back into the ancient past, we are aware, and through other brilliant researchers, that the original codices, that means to say the writings that were done on stone and clay, tell a very different story than the one that we have within our holy books today. And of course, religion unfortunately has created more war and bloodshed than any other advent of following, in terms of, with what we're linked with. We all want to become one, we all want to be one, but there's a systematic program that I believe is alien and must hate a certain faction of them, must hate the human that much that they hold us in bondage to this trap that we're in, because nothing has evolved, nothing has advanced. It's all about money, it's all about power, it's all about control, and it's less about, you know, if I say to you, Karen, you know, money or no money, if there was a system where we could work with no money but all be happy at the same token, because it's important to be happy, what would you like to do in life? What can you bring to the table? Now, I know there'll be many people in life who will say, I don't want to do anything. You'll get that anyway. But there's a lot of people out there, souls who have passed, souls who are here, who are not being utilized to their maximum potential of what they could bring to the table. And this has always confused me. Everything is so hard to get to this or to that. And the educational system is program this, program that. This has to be smashed and broken, because the powers that be, I'm sure, are operating for a higher intelligence that is not human, and that they have it in some kind of bubble or trap. Just very briefly here, what's puzzled me, and I'm working on a new book for a publisher at the moment, a spiritual book, is the incarnation and reincarnation process. And it has to be addressed. People say, oh, we plan our journey on the other side before we come here. I'm not doubting that. But are you really seriously telling me that you're going to come down into a war-torn country or a poor background or in Auschwitz? It has to be addressed. People try and rub it out as though it didn't exist. This is a fact. So something somewhere on a spiritual level has gone wrong. And I believe that that is why in the past, such masters as Muhammad, Jesus, whoever has come in to try and give the human hope within the spirit that there is a higher level to what we currently represent within the human. So this is areas we're looking into, but certainly I believe that things are very dark at the moment, and I think a lot of people who are awakened can see right through that like a pane of glass.
The point is that civilization, beside that, we always kind of reach a zenith. Atlantis, the Egyptians, the Mayans, and they're wiped out. We reach technological superiority to a degree, and then it crumbles. And I'm worrying if we're seeing the very same thing again happening. We're reaching a point where we now have, they call it artificial intelligence. It's not true AI yet, but it is a form of, we'll call it AI, but it's not a consciousness. That is a long way off. But the point is, we've reached a pinnacle in science and technology, which is marvelous. And you have all these wars now waging on you, thinking, for the love of God, is it going to happen again? Are we going to see our own empires being wiped out through arrogance and greed? And the point is that it's rather like a battle of angels and demons, isn't it? This thing goes round and round like clockwork. These people will never learn. They just don't learn. And it happens again and again, this repetitive cycle of destruction. I'm hoping, very hoping, that these aliens, the good ones, will come and assist if it gets too far. They will stop this. And I think it reminds me of that wonderful film, Childhood's End. I read the book by Arthur C. Clarke, Childhood's End, where they arrive. And they put the world to rights. Yes, there is a price to pay for it at the end, but the point is they arrived and they bring peace and prosperity upon the earth by correcting it. And ironically, they couldn't show themselves because they looked like the devil, and yet they were the angels. That's the irony of life. It's a mirror, isn't it? Life is like a mirror. It's always refracted and it's always reflected. You go out and think, I'm going to have a positive day, and it turns out to be diabolical. Other days you can't be bothered. It turns out to be wonderful. I think it is not only a frame of mind. The point is that we're living in very strange times and very dangerous times. I agree with you. But it is almost like a war of angels and demons, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you go back into the past, the way that we view it, the way that it's been programmed systematically into our consciousness, is that we have a man in a red suit carrying a pitchfork and has horns. It is far from that. And the story is far more complex. And I think there's a warring of gods that we would call gods, perhaps extraterrestrial gods. Because let's face it, I always knew as a kid that the man with the white beard couldn't just whip us up in 6 days and then rest on the seventh. There had to be some kind of, intervention or
Yeah.
remodification of the hominid, because if we were true descendants of the planet, why would we shy from our very own sun? We're not adapted to deal with the environmental difficulties this planet presents. And once again, the really annoying thing is the system will tell you and slam down, no, this is what it is. But, the system will collapse, it will begin to crumble, and people like yourselves and myself and Ronnie and many other wonderful millions of souls will awaken to the fact and be glorious in the knowledge that there is so much more that's been hidden from us, deliberately hidden.
Oh, yes. I think I think too, the reason that we're kept in this trap is to create the illusion of scarcity. So people are fighting over land, they're fighting over money, they're fighting over everything. And we're taught by the religions that what we have here in life is all scarcity based and it's based on pain and suffering. And then when you die, then you get your release. But I think if we understood the true interdimensionality of reality, there is life beyond and beyond and beyond, resources beyond and beyond and beyond. There's no scarcity. There never has been, there never will be. And as soon as we open our eyes to that, we can just put down, I think, our differences and start to emulate the personalities of these other beings that are transdimensional, pass back and forth. Because in my experience and in the experience of many people, although some of these experiences have been frightening, they also have never actually been harmed or persecuted or tortured by these interdimensional beings. So I think the whole thing is us passing from the illusion of scarcity into the reality of abundance. What are your final thoughts on
Yes,
this?
growth does come with pain, and we are
Mm-hmm.
definitely going through pain in terms of change. And I also can see that the Earth is the most precious and wonderful planet within this universe. And I absolutely, totally agree with the fact that something has gone wrong. And I think that those other interdimensional forces are trying to interpenetrate with our material plane, making a connection. And there is this war against good and evil. We call it good and evil, but right and wrong, this struggle to maintain sovereignty and power and balance from both sides. And I believe that uniquely as we are, not as the human, but I like to use the word as the avatar, because we are
Mm-hmm.
all avatars in the making. We are all here with our sovereignty. We are spirit. We are connected to source. And there is no way that we can be destroyed, no matter what comes along to threaten us. We cannot be destroyed. We are ostensibly immortal. It's just that there is a faction here who obviously is holding on to what it survives by. And if more people opened up and became more positive and enlightened, I'm sure that it would see an end to that destructive and negative force completely.
Well, I tend to think learning is wonderful.
Mm.
All this war and hatred is such a waste of energy and is terrible.
Mm.
The poor families who are persecuted is disgraceful.
Mm.
Imagine what we could achieve if there were no wars.
Mm.
Everyone had a home. Everyone had water and food. There was enough to go around on this whole planet. Imagine what we could achieve
Yes.
with just your thinking, creation,
And love.
And love.
And love.
There would be no bounds to what we could accomplish. But the trouble with this world is there's a greedy few individuals who wish to play the power of God. And believe me, they are not going to have a very happy ending. They won't have any happy endings. They need to be hoping to keep gasping on their last breath before they pass over, because they will be judged accordingly. They think they've got it
Mm-hmm.
on the playground.
Well,
they won't be on the other side.
Well,
no.
within themselves.
No, but just learning is incredible, because an example for me, even though I'm a trained artist, I have problems. I run into problems. But you see, it's the drive of those problems that makes it more rewarding. It's like anything. You could write a book, compose a piece of music, create a piece of art. It goes on and on. Write a computer program, develop a game, anything. It's wonderful. It comes with its challenges. That's part of the human way, the part of learning. So it saddens me to think that, all we hear about all the time on the news now is negativity, because they're drawing us down. They keep pulling us down. With problems, with pain, with anxieties, and there's a lot of people out there, bless their hearts, who are very anxious, and it's unfair on them. If we could just dispel all those negative forces, get rid of them, destroy them if need be, and then have a world where it's just full of wonderment and no greed, just creativity, and that's the whole point. We're only here for 70 years, and 10 if we're lucky, longer. So why not?
Well said, well said. Now we're quickly running out of time, so I want to give you each a chance, because you're both such exciting people. Tell us what you're up to. Tell us about your projects and what you've got planned for the near future, and also where can people find you. Of course, there'll be links in the description below, but for those listening on audio, they might enjoy hearing where they can reach you as well.
Yeah, well, I'm working on a new book, a spiritual book, and that is coming out next year by an American publisher. And then I'm working on another UFO book, exploring a deep aspect of the theoretical contents with regards to that. I've had some articles published in Italian magazines and several other magazines, but I've had to put a lot of things on hold while I work on this new book. As you know, Karen, it's a hard, long struggle, and it's not a walk in the park. It's like making a cake, and then, you've got to decorate it and all the rest of it. And you can reach us at www.thekinsellatwins.com.
Well, I'm got into model making with these amazing resin printers. Because I'm an artist, I've got a sculpting software, so I'm developing creature effects. And the first one, I've nearly finished him. He's a lovable but very cocky but very smart mechanical dog. He was a childhood pal we had, and we wanted to create him, but now I can. So I'm producing him as a 2-foot model, 2 foot, in stages, sliced, of course, but I want him a physical model of him, and I love doing that. So I'm moving out into model making and creating science fiction effects from my own heart. I will make some of the War for World machines because I quite like H.G. Wells. And I've also finished a science fiction novella based on the ugly futures you mentioned, Karen. So I'm moving more into my model work, science fiction, which I'm very happy about. Very happy.
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Yeah, I'll have to have you on again on my other show, the Quantum Guide Show, Ronald, and maybe you can show us what you're working on and some of your models and where the ideas come from, because it's fascinating. It's very, very interesting.
I would love to.
Wonderful. So we'll stay in touch. And thank you again so much, both of you, for joining us on Aliens and Angels. I always enjoy your visits. I hope you'll come back again. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful autumn. And do you have any last minute words of wisdom for the audience before we go?
Yeah, I just want to say, love yourself, be kind to other people. Just think what a change that can make. If we all help someone in this world, I know that life is difficult. People are up and down depending on their moods, but just think, you help someone. If we help everyone, what a world this would be, eh?
And don't give up. It's like me with my models. Don't give up. If you reach a problem or find a problem, just resolve it. Leave it. Always leave it the next day. If you can't do anything, leave it. I promise you'll be in a better frame of mind for it.
Wonderful. And thank you so much, both of you, for being on the show today. And thank you to the audience, the listeners, the viewers, whether you're on audio or you're watching the replay or you're here live today. I appreciate you all so very, very much. And we'll see you next week on Aliens and Angels. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Karen.
Thank you for joining me for the Aliens and Angels podcast. Become the change that you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to my YouTube, Rumble, and X channels at Karen Holton TV. Click the like button, leave me a comment, and share this podcast with your friends. Check out my website at www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All of the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you will also find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton on all audio platforms. Until next time, keep up the good work.